My name is Allison Davis, and I was an animal care professional at the Birmingham Zoo for 8 years. Growing up, I always thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. I came from a medical background, so I kind of saw that side, and I loved animals, of course, like every kid does. And then when I went to college, I actually volunteered at a vet clinic and saw a little bit of the zoo side because I volunteered here in Birmingham, and it's a little bit different from a vet clinic seeing wild animals, and I just fell in love with it from there and changed my career path a little bit to go that direction.
Okay.
My parents were both in the medical field. So my dad was a doctor, my mom was a nurse, so I was just kind of surrounded by that. So science was always big in our family, and we had pets growing up, and so that's kind of what I was raised in.
How many pets did you have growing up?
Oh goodness, we had 2 inside dogs, 3 outside dogs, 3 cats. We had some kittens in there, a rabbit, some birds. Our own little zoo.
Like a menagerie.
So I went to UAB here in Birmingham. Again, initially thought I wanted to be a veterinarian, so started on a pre-vet track. So once I realized I kind of wanted to shift that, I went into a biology major. So that's what I ended up getting a degree in, was a major in biology and a minor in chemistry.
Okay.
While you're in school, part of the biology degree is you get to do zoology classes, which is zoo type stuff. So I saw a bunch, and took every class I could, focused on some kind of wildlife, whether it be in the ocean, on the land, in the air, if it's got a backbone, if it doesn't, like jellyfish don't. I just kind of absorbed everything I could. So I specifically chose to do a research internship where I got to work with sea turtle reproduction, which was really cool. So you could go different ways depending on what you chose to do your internship. But yeah, you could go out, you could do an internship at a vet clinic if that's what you wanted to do. Zoos do a lot of internships, not just Birmingham, but Montgomery and pretty much anywhere. Like Ruffner Mountain, wildlife parks around Birmingham, they do internships and volunteering and doing all kinds of stuff like that. So really just kind of depends on what you wanted to do, but yes, I did. Okay. So I started in what's called Children's Zoo, and it kind of encompassed a lot at the time. Now it's split up a little bit different, but when I was hired in 2008, it had what you would consider your petting zoo animals, the barn and goats and sheep and things like that. We also had Alabama native wildlife, like foxes and otters, bald eagles, a little bit more, not so much petting. Then we also had what we called programs, which was the pocket pets, things you could handle, take to outreach programs, like schools and children's hospital. We also did shows at the zoo every day. So they always start you in the barn with the nice petting animals. And then you progress through that department and learn the more difficult animals. And then over the years, I was actually lucky enough to cross-train in African species like giraffe, and zebras. I got to work with elephants a little bit. And I also worked with reptiles a lot, venomous and non-venomous. So I was really lucky in that, spending so much time there and studying a lot and doing extra stuff, I got to experience more through that.
That's cool.
I didn't completely leave zoology. There's a wide array of things you can do in animal care. I just kind of shifted to the left a little.
Okay.
I left the zoo and actually worked down at Auburn Vet School for a little bit to get more of the veterinarian medical side, just to have that experience. I was there for 4 years, learned a lot as far as more advanced animal care. And now I'm actually working in wildlife rescue and rehabilitation. So what that means is that we take animals that have been, say there's a hawk that gets hit by a car and has a bum wing. And so what we do is we rescue that animal, take it in, give it the medicine it needs, bandage it up, which is where having that experience at Auburn really comes into play. And kind of mend it back to health and then be able to re-release it into the wild. So kind of the same, kind of different, you know.
Yeah.
Overall goal to help wildlife and animals, you know, conservation's bottom line. It's just you're doing it in a different way. So, love to do that. Because there is so much, you know, and social media is bad about it, you know, and I think it's just all a misunderstanding. If you look into any zoo or sanctuary of any type, you know, their bottom line mission is going to be conservation, you know, and as public coming in, you don't necessarily get to see that because, you know, we do have animals that are in their habitats on display for you to see, but you don't get to see the stuff that goes on in the background. And the reason why those animals are out there for you to see is so that we can educate you. Because, I mean, think about it, if we didn't have those animals on display, would you have ever seen them? Mm-hmm. That's right. So that is a way for us to teach, is to be able to actually see an animal in person is very different than looking at it in a book. You know, It makes it real. Mm-hmm. So you can connect with that animal on a different level if it's in front of you. And so for the zoos, that's a tool we use to further push that conservation agenda. The fact that these animals aren't doing well on their own in the wild for, you know, for whatever reason, whether it's habitat destruction, deforestation, pollution, whatever it may be. You know, there's something that's affecting these animals in the wild, and, you know, yeah, we put them on display, but it's so we can help you make that connection to that animal, that personal connection. And I think people just overlook or just don't understand that there's more to it than, you know, us trying to make money.
Yeah, looking at them behind cages.
Yeah. And, you know, if you get in, say you get on Google and you start researching the zoos, you can find out what their missions are, and that they're sending their zookeepers across the world to do research, to do conservation. I know Birmingham Zoo sends 5 or 6 people every year somewhere to do some kind of research to help with conservation. So the information's there, you just got to look for it. Mm-hmm. So there are different levels, and I'll use Birmingham Zoo as an example. When I started there, we had high school kids that were, I think at the time they were called barn crew, but they were volunteers that came in just to get animal experience. You know, we trained them to do whatever task they wanted to do, and, you know, there were levels that, just like a new employee coming in, we had to be trained at the most docile animal and then work your way up. But yeah, absolutely, there are volunteer opportunities. And at the time, there were volunteer opportunities for the different departments. I don't know if that's still the same, but get on the website, you know, whatever organization you want to look at going into, whether it's the zoo or a vet clinic, just communicate, contact them, say, hey, this is what I want to do, what are the availabilities, and most places like that absolutely jump at the opportunity of having helping hands and to be able to teach, because, again, that's our bottom line, is that we do want to teach people. Mm-hmm. There's a couple different ways you could go for animal care. I'll use Birmingham again as an example. One of my coworkers started as a volunteer when he was 13, you know, and worked there up until he was 19, and he had a high school diploma, but he didn't have his college degree. But because he had had 6 years working at the zoo as a volunteer, he was hired on as an employee. So for him, you know, he graduated high school, and because of he had put so much extra work into it as a volunteer, you know, using his personal time to learn, he was taken in as an employee. For me, you know, I went to college first and got a biology degree, so I was able to step in as an employee. Nowadays, you know, culture's changed a little bit. A lot of organizations are pushing for masters. It's not necessary. It definitely helps you out. Like, I'm going to go back to school to get my master's to further, you know, my education in the field and to help me climb that ladder a little bit better. But just kind of depends on how much outside time you put into it. You know, if you show an organization that you're dedicated and you spend years volunteering, you know, they will look at you. But you got to put in that extra work, whether it be volunteering or in school. Okay. Make a decision, like, if that's what you want to do. And you don't have to be, this is exactly what I want to do with my life. But if, you know, you want to work with animals, you know, spend your life studying animals. If it's in school, great. If it's you want to go volunteer somewhere and get that experience, great, but put in the extra effort. Instead of sitting at home playing video games, go somewhere and study animals, get a degree, get a certification. There are certifications you can get outside of college for animal care. Like vet techs. That's the certification that's kind of outside of your 4-year school. But it all comes down to spending your time wisely and really dedicating your life to studying animals and focusing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.